They say family is supposed to protect you, but sometimes the sharpest knife comes from the hands you trusted most. When my daughter-in-law slid a stack of papers across the table and smiled sweetly, telling me it was just routine, I almost believed her. Almost. But I've lived 80 years on this earth, and I've learned to listen when something feels wrong. What she didn't know was that the pen she handed me became my weapon. She thought she had tricked me into giving her everything I owned, but I signed something else entirely. Something that would end her greed and show her just how dangerous it is to underestimate an old woman. My name is Clara Mitchell, and this is the story of how my daughter-in-law's betrayal turned into her downfall. At 80 years old, I don't expect much from life except a little peace and quiet. I spend my mornings tending to the roses in my front yard and my evenings with a cup of tea, knitting by the fireplace. I live alone now. My husband Thomas passed 10 years ago, and though the silence can ache, I've learned to live with it. What still warms my heart is family. My son Daniel is my pride and joy. He's 45 now, a successful man with a kind smile, though lately he's been more tired, more distracted. He married a woman named Lisa 5 years ago. From the beginning, I sensed something off about her. She had a laugh that never reached her eyes, a way of glancing around the room like she was always calculating. But Daniel loved her, and so I tried. Lord knows I tried. Lisa had a way of making me feel like a guest in my own family. She'd smile and call me Mom, but her eyes carried something sharper, colder. I brushed it off at first. Maybe it was just me being too sensitive, too protective of my boy. But one rainy afternoon, everything changed. Daniel was at work, and Lisa stopped by my house with a plate of cookies. She breezed in with her perfume trailing behind her, her blonde hair pulled back into a perfect bun, wearing a designer coat that probably cost more than my entire month's pension. "Clara," she said sweetly, placing the cookies on the table, "I thought I'd check in on you. How are you feeling?" "I'm fine, thank you," I said cautiously. Lisa wasn't the type to just check in. She smiled wider, sitting across from me at the dining table. Good. Actually, I brought something I need your help with. Just some routine paperwork." I frowned. Paperwork. She pulled out a sleek leather folder from her bag and slid it across the table. Inside were several documents, typed neatly with legal headers I didn't recognize. "It's just some insurance updates," she said quickly. "Nothing complicated. Daniel's so busy at work, and we just need your signature to finalize everything. It'll make sure you're taken care of, too." My stomach tightened. Her voice was honey, but there was a flicker in her eyes, nervous, urgent. I didn't touch the papers. "Lisa," I said carefully, "why would my name need to be on your insurance papers?" Her smile didn't falter, but her fingers tapped lightly on the table. "Oh, it's just standard. Really, it's for your benefit. You know how these companies are." I looked down at the papers. I might be old, but I'm not blind. The words danced, but I caught enough: transfer of ownership, beneficiary rights, relinquish claim. My chest went cold. She wanted me to sign away my house. The home Thomas and I had built together, brick by brick, the one place left that carried his memory. I leaned back slowly, meeting her eyes. "And Daniel knows about this?" There was the briefest pause before she laughed lightly. "Of course. He's just too busy to explain all this, so I offered to help. You trust me, don't you?" Trust. That word cut like glass. For a moment, I felt the weight of betrayal pressing hard against my chest. My son, my Daniel, was either blind to his wife's schemes or complicit in them. Either way, it was clear, Lisa saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone to her fortune. But here's the thing about underestimating an old woman: we've survived too much to fall for the first trap laid in front of us. I smiled faintly, closing the folder and pushing it back toward her. "I'll need to read this carefully. I don't sign things I don't understand." Her smile twitched, the corners of her mouth tightening. "Oh, Clara, you don't need to worry. It's all standard." "Then you won't mind if I look it over," I said firmly. Her eyes flashed, but she quickly smoothed her expression. "Of course. Take your time." She gathered her bag and stood, leaning down to kiss my cheek. Her lips were cold. "I knew you'd be practical about this. I'll check in tomorrow." When the door closed behind her, I sank into my chair, my hands trembling. I pulled the folder back out and spread the pages across the table. The more I read, the clearer it became, Lisa wasn't just greedy, she was ruthless. She wanted everything. My home, my accounts, even control over the little savings I had left. She had framed it as protection, but it was nothing more than theft dressed in legal jargon. I sat in the silence of my kitchen, the rain tapping against the window, and whispered to Thomas's photo on the wall. She thinks I'm blind. She thinks she can erase me with a pen stroke. But she has no idea who she's dealing with. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept my own papers. My will. My deed. My savings account records. If Lisa wanted to play games with documents, I was about to show her I could play better. And the pen she placed in my hand? It wouldn't be her victory. It would be her undoing. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the folder still heavy on my kitchen table downstairs. My thoughts circled like crows, Lisa's sweet smile, the way her fingers tapped nervously on the wood, and those damning words, transfer of ownership. At 80 years old, I had learned one thing: if something doesn't smell right, you trust your nose. And Lisa's papers reeked of deceit. By morning, I had made up my mind. After breakfast, I carefully packed the folder into my handbag and rode the bus downtown. I could still get around, though slower than before. My knees ached, but I walked straight into the law office of an old acquaintance, Mr. Howard. He was well into his 70s, a semi-retired attorney I'd known since my Thomas was alive. He adjusted his glasses as he flipped through the papers Lisa had given me. His frown deepened with each page. "Clara," he said finally, setting them down, "these are not insurance forms. These are transfer documents. If you had signed this, you would have effectively handed over your house to Lisa and Daniel. It would no longer be yours." The words hit hard, even though I already suspected. So she wanted to trick me. He sighed. "Yes. It's worded carefully to make it sound harmless, but the intent is clear: she gains control, and you lose everything." I clenched my hands together, my chest tightening. And Daniel? Did he know? Mr. Howard hesitated. "His name is listed here, but it's possible she pushed it without explaining. Or, he's complicit." That thought sliced me open. My Daniel, my only son, would he truly betray me like this? I couldn't accept it. Not yet. Mr. Howard leaned forward. "Clara, you're fortunate you didn't sign. But you must be careful. Greedy people don't stop when you tell them no. They just get sneakier." I left the office with my head spinning but my resolve strengthening. If Lisa wanted to play this game, then I'd play it too. Only difference was, unlike her, I knew how to be patient. When I returned home, I took out my leather notebook, the same one where I wrote grocery lists and reminders, and turned to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "Lisa, attempted fraud, March 8th. Underneath, I began documenting everything. The date she came with cookies. The exact words she said. My suspicions about the papers. Even her nervous tapping fingers. It all mattered. Because if she tried again, and I was certain she would, I'd have proof." Later that week, Daniel stopped by. My heart lifted when I saw him at the door, though it was weighed down by dread. He looked tired, his tie loosened, shadows under his eyes. "Hi, Mom," he said, kissing my cheek. "Lisa told me she dropped off some paperwork for you. Did you sign it?" My breath caught. I studied his face carefully. He looked casual, almost distracted. "No," I said slowly. "I told her I wanted to read it first." Something flickered across his face, relief? Or disappointment? I couldn't tell. "Good. Always be careful with paperwork," he said quickly, moving to change the subject. I wanted to grab him by the shoulders and ask, "Daniel, do you know what she's trying to do? Are you in on this?" But the words stuck in my throat. I needed proof before I confronted him. Otherwise, Lisa would twist it all and make me look senile, paranoid. Instead, I smiled faintly and said, "Thank you for checking in." When he left, I watched his car disappear down the street, my heart aching. Whether he knew or not, I couldn't risk trusting him blindly anymore. That evening, I sat by the fireplace, the folder on my lap, Thomas's photo above the mantel watching over me. I whispered to him, "She thinks I'm weak. She thinks she can outsmart me. But I'll show her, she's not the only one who knows how to play a long game." The next day, I went to the county clerk's office. I asked to review my property deed, ensuring it was still in my name. It was. For now. As I left, I made another decision. If Lisa wanted to push papers under my nose, I'd prepare my own. With Mr. Howard's help, I would update my will, securing everything in a way she couldn't touch. My house, my savings, everything would be locked down. But that wasn't all. Because revenge wasn't just about protection. It was about making sure she tasted her own poison. So I started watching Lisa closer. At family dinners, I listened. She dropped hints about big plans and investments. She liked expensive handbags and jewelry, things that seemed to appear overnight. Daniel worked hard, but I knew his salary couldn't cover the lifestyle she flaunted. Which meant she had secrets too. And secrets, I thought, are the currency of revenge. I documented everything in my notebook, every suspicious purchase, every slip of her tongue. Slowly, a picture began to form, a picture of greed bigger than just my house. By the end of the month, I was ready. Lisa thought she was leading me to her trap. But what she didn't know was that I had already built one of my own. And soon, when she slid papers across the table again, it wouldn't be her victory. It would be her undoing. The weeks that followed were a careful dance. Lisa still called me often, her tone dripping with honey, but every word was bobbed underneath. "Clara, have you thought any more about those documents?" she'd ask in her lilting voice. It really would make things easier for Daniel and me in the long run. Each time, I gave her the same calm reply, "I'm still reviewing." And each time, I could hear the irritation tightening in her throat. But patience is an old woman's gift. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel and Lisa invited me over for lunch. They said they wanted family time, but I knew better. Their house was as flashy as ever, white marble countertops, leather couches, a chandelier that sparkled like icicles. Lisa floated around in a silk blouse and designer heels, her blonde hair pinned perfectly in place. Daniel looked weary, his tie loosened, eyes shadowed with fatigue. "Mom," Lisa said sweetly as she poured me a glass of iced tea, "you know, it would really give Daniel peace of mind if you finalize those papers. He worries about you living alone, and this way, we'd be able to manage everything smoothly." I sipped my tea slowly, hiding the twist of disgust in my stomach. She wasn't even subtle anymore. "Lisa," I said evenly, "you and Daniel seem to be doing just fine without my help. A new car, new furniture." I let my gaze sweep the glittering kitchen. "It looks like money isn't a problem for you." Her smile faltered for the briefest second before she quickly laughed. "Oh, Daniel works so hard. We deserve a little luxury." Daniel cleared his throat but said nothing, staring down at his plate. I didn't push. Not yet. Later, while Lisa busied herself in the kitchen, I wandered down the hall to use the bathroom. On my way back, I noticed her office door ajar. My curiosity tugged me closer. Stacks of papers littered her desk, receipts from boutiques, jewelry stores, even a reservation for a luxury resort. But one envelope stood out. It was stamped with the logo of a finance company I recognized from town. I didn't dare touch it, but the bold letters were visible through the thin paper. "Final notice, past due." My heart quickened. So this was the truth. Their glamorous life was built on shaky ground. She wasn't just greedy, she was drowning in debt. And she thought my house was her lifeboat. I returned to the table calmly, my face a mask of grandmotherly serenity. Lisa prattled on about remodeling the living room, and Daniel stared at his food, silent. But inside, I was no longer hurt. I was sharpening my knife. That evening, back in my own home, I pulled out my leather notebook. In careful script, I wrote, April 15th, Lisa pressuring about documents again. Observed debt notice on her desk. Likely financial trouble. Motive, desperate for security. Weakness confirmed. I closed the notebook and felt a strange calm settle over me. Lisa thought she had me cornered. But I had lived long enough to know that desperation makes people careless. And careless people are easy to catch. The next day, I visited Mr. Howard again. I slid my notes and observations across his desk. I want to make sure my estate is locked so tight that even if I blink, she can't touch it. He nodded, adjusting his glasses. We can create an irrevocable trust. That way, your house and assets are legally shielded. Even if someone tried to trick you, they'd have no claim. And one more thing, I added. Can we draft a document for me to sign, but one that isn't what she expects? His brows rose slightly, then he smiled. Ah, you're planning a lesson. Yes, I said firmly. She wants me to sign something? Then I will. But it won't be hers. It'll be mine. By the time I left his office, the papers were in motion. Lisa would get exactly what she asked for, except instead of giving her my house, I would be giving her the ruin she had earned. That night, as I sat by the fireplace with Thomas's photo above the mantel, I whispered, she doesn't know it yet, but every step she takes brings her closer to her own downfall. And when the moment comes, I'll sign with a steady hand. Because revenge doesn't always need fire and fury. Sometimes, all it takes is ink on paper. Lisa was never one to wait patiently. By the following week, she was knocking at my door again, a bright smile plastered on her face, but her eyes sharp like glass. Clara, she said warmly, I hope I'm not intruding. I just thought we could have a little chat. You know, about those documents. I invited her in, offering her tea, though my hands itched to throw the cup in her face. Instead, I placed it gently in front of her and sat opposite, my leather notebook hidden beneath a magazine on the table. She wasted no time. It would really make things easier for Daniel and me if you finalized everything soon. Honestly, it's just paperwork, nothing to stress over. Her words were coated with sugar, but I heard the urgency underneath. I smiled faintly. Lisa, I'm 80 years old. Everything I do carefully. If it's as harmless as you say, you shouldn't mind me taking my time. Her jaw tightened, though her smile didn't break. Of course. But you know, with your health at your age, things could happen suddenly. Wouldn't you rather have the peace of mind that everything is taken care of? The audacity nearly took my breath away. She was trying to scare me into signing my life away. I sipped my tea calmly. You're right, Lisa. Peace of mind is important. That's why I've been working with Mr. Howard. He's making sure everything is in order. Her smile faltered, just a crack, but she quickly recovered. That's wonderful, Clara. I'll tell Daniel you're being proactive. I only nodded. But inside, I knew the bait was working. The very next day, Daniel came by, his expression tired but more troubled than before. Mom, he said softly, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, Lisa mentioned you've been hesitant about signing some things. I want you to know we'd never hurt you. We just want to make sure you're safe. Safe. I almost laughed. He looked worn, shoulders sagging, like a man being pulled in two directions. I couldn't tell if he was fully aware of Lisa's schemes or just blindly following her lead. But either way, I had to protect myself. Daniel, I said, reaching across to squeeze his hand, you're my son. I've trusted you my whole life. But I have to be careful. You understand that, don't you? He looked down at his hands, nodding slowly. I understand. But when he left, I caught a glimpse of Lisa waiting in the car, her fingers drumming the steering wheel, her eyes burning with impatience. That night, I took out my notebook and wrote. April 22nd, Lisa pushing harder. Daniel caught in the middle. Urgency equals desperation. Time to spring the trap. With Mr. Howard's help, we had already prepared the papers, an irrevocable trust that secured my house, savings, and everything else away from Lisa's reach. The beauty of it was that the document looked official, complex, intimidating, just the kind of thing Lisa would shove in front of me with a fake smile. The twist? I would sign it in front of her. She'd think she had won. And all the while, the pen stroke would be sealing her defeat. A few days later, Lisa called again. Clara, darling, I have the updated forms ready. Why don't I come by tomorrow, and we'll get this done once and for all? Her voice was bright, cheerful, like a cat purring before the strike. I agreed. That night, I sat by the fire, Thomas's photo above the mantel catching the glow. I whispered, tomorrow she'll think she's buried me. But what she won't realize is that she'll be standing in her own grave. The next morning, I dressed carefully, smoothing my floral dress and buttoning my pale blue cardigan. I placed the trust papers neatly on the table beneath a plain envelope. When Lisa arrived, smiling wide and holding her own sleek folder, she had no idea the game had already been decided. Lisa arrived the next morning with a smile so wide it looked painted on. She carried her leather folder tucked under her arm like a prized trophy. Clara, she greeted me warmly, kissing the air beside my cheek. Shall we sit down and take care of this? Once you sign, everything will be easier for all of us. I gestured toward the dining table where I had laid out tea, biscuits, and the plain envelope with my own documents tucked neatly inside. Of course. Let's not drag this out any longer. Her eyes glittered. She slid her folder onto the table, pulling out a thick stack of papers. She positioned them in front of me and set a pen delicately by my hand. Here we are, she said, her voice soft but urgent. Just a few signatures at the bottom. Don't worry about the legal jargon, Daniel and I have already reviewed it. I stared down at the papers. Bold words screamed back at me: transfer of property ownership. Beneficiary rights. If I had been the naive old woman she thought I was, one pen stroke would have erased me. But I wasn't. I smiled faintly. It looks complicated, Lisa. I wouldn't want to make a mistake. She leaned closer, her perfume strong and cloying. Oh, Clara, it's nothing. Trust me. You'll be glad you did this. That word again. Trust. How easily it slipped from her lips, even as she prepared to rob me blind. I picked up the pen, turning it slowly between my fingers. My heart pounded, but my face remained calm. You're sure this is the right thing to do? Her eyes sparkled with triumph. Absolutely. I lowered my gaze, as if finally defeated, and nodded. All right. But I'd like to use my own papers first, just for my records. You don't mind, do you? Before she could react, I slid my plain envelope across the table and pulled out the trust documents Mr. Howard had prepared. They looked just as official as hers, pages filled with legal language. To Lisa's greedy eyes, it was perfect camouflage. She blinked but recovered quickly, eager to see my pen move. Oh sure. Whatever makes you comfortable. With steady hands, I signed at the bottom of each page. Lisa watched hungrily, mistaking my calm for surrender. There now, I said softly, sliding the papers back into the envelope. It's done. Her smile widened, smug and gleaming. She gathered her folder and papers, clearly convinced she had won. Wonderful, Clara. You've made the right choice. Daniel will be so relieved. But what she didn't know was that the only thing I had signed was her defeat. Later that afternoon, I called Mr. Howard. It's finished, I told him. She thinks I signed her papers. In reality, I've locked everything down. My house, my savings, even my will. She can't touch any of it now. He chuckled softly. Smart move, Clara. When she realizes the truth, it'll be too late. I sat back in my armchair, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. For the first time, I felt control again, not the fragile kind, but the solid weight of justice in my hands. That evening, Daniel stopped by. His tie was loose, his expression weary. Lisa said you finally signed the documents. Is that true? I studied him carefully. Yes, I said, my voice steady. I signed papers. But not the ones she thinks. He blinked, confused. What do you mean? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. I know about Lisa's games. I know about the debts, the desperate spending, the lies. And I know she tried to trick me. What I signed was a trust. Everything is protected now. She can't touch it. His face drained of color. He rubbed his forehead, sinking into a chair. Oh God. Mom. I didn't know. She told me it was just insurance paperwork. I searched his eyes. For the first time, I saw the truth. He wasn't a conspirator. He was a pawn. I wanted to believe she had good intentions, he whispered, his voice breaking. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I reached over, placing my hand on his. Daniel, you're my son. I love you. But you need to open your eyes. Lisa's greed isn't just a flaw, it's poison. And if you don't stop it, it'll destroy you too. He nodded weakly, his shoulders slumped. What do we do now? I looked at him firmly. Now? We wait. Because sooner or later, she'll reveal herself to everyone. And when she does, she won't just lose my trust, she'll lose everything. That night, I wrote the final entry in my notebook for the day. April 27th, signed my trust. Lisa believes she has won. The truth, Her greed has signed her downfall. I closed the book, tucked it under my pillow, and smiled faintly. Because sometimes revenge doesn't roar. Sometimes it waits in silence, until the walls close in on the guilty all by themselves. For a few weeks, Lisa was radiant. She floated into family dinners with a smug smile, acting like a queen who had just claimed her crown. She spoke about future plans, and hinted about renovations, trips, and investments. I watched silently, sipping my tea, knowing every word came from her false belief that she now owned my home and savings. One evening, she bragged openly in front of Daniel and me. "You know, Clara, it's good you finally trusted me. Now everything is streamlined. You won't have to worry about anything again." Daniel's face darkened, his jaw tight, but he said nothing. He had been quieter since I told him the truth, his eyes clouded with shame. I knew he was torn between loyalty to his wife and the mother who had raised him. But I also knew the moment was coming. It came sooner than I expected. A letter arrived in the mail one bright May morning, addressed to Lisa but delivered to my house. I don't know if fate misplaced it or if greed has its own way of unraveling, but when I opened it, the truth spilled out in black ink. Final notice of foreclosure, finance company. My heart didn't sink. It soared. The luxury bags, the vacations, the fancy car, they had all been built on borrowed money. Lisa's empire wasn't wealth, it was debt stacked higher than her heels. That evening, I invited them both over. Lisa came in with her usual grin, Daniel trailing behind with heavy steps. I placed the foreclosure letter in the center of the table. Her face drained of color. "Where did you get that?" she snapped, her voice shrill. "It was delivered here," I said calmly. "Seems the life you've been parading around isn't quite as perfect as you claim." She snatched up the letter, crumpling it in her manicured hands. "This is none of your business." "Oh, but it is," I replied, my voice steady as stone. "Because you thought you could drag me into your mess by stealing my home. You thought I'd sign away everything I own to bail you out. But what I signed protected it all. The house, the savings, the estate, they're locked. You'll never touch a dime of it." Her mouth opened, then closed. Daniel turned on her, fury in his eyes. "Is that what this was all about, Lisa? You tried to trick my mother into giving you her house." She stammered, I was just trying to secure things for us." "For you," he roared. "Not for us. For you." The mask she wore finally cracked. Her smile vanished, her eyes blazing. "Fine. Yes. I needed security. You think your salary covers everything? You think I want to live like some small-town nobody? I deserve more." Her words echoed through the room like a confession in a courtroom. I leaned forward, my eyes sharp. "Lisa, greed is a hungry beast. And you've been feeding it for years. But it won't eat me alive." Daniel's face was red with rage. "Get out, Lisa. I can't even look at you right now." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. The silence afterward was heavy. Daniel sat down, burying his face in his hands. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." I reached over, resting my hand gently on his shoulder. "You're my son. You're all I ever wanted to protect. But now you have to learn to protect yourself too, from the kind of greed that destroys families." In the days that followed, Lisa's downfall spread quickly. Word of her debts leaked into the community. Creditors called, friends withdrew, and the shine she wore so proudly dulled into rust. Her name, once associated with elegance, became a whisper of scandal. As for me, I sat on my porch swing one warm evening, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of gold. My notebook lay closed beside me. For the first time in months, I felt light. I whispered to Thomas's photo hanging just inside the window, "It's done, love." She tried to erase me, but instead, she erased herself. Daniel visited often after that, without Lisa. He helped me with groceries, fixed the creaky steps, and sometimes just sat with me in quiet companionship. The weight in his eyes slowly lifted, replaced by gratitude. And I finally had peace. Because Lisa thought a pen stroke would steal my future. But it was my signature, not hers, that ended her greed forever.